somebody has interest in your script. How do you keep that dialogue going? I'm going to talk about a little bit about how I've had interest from 7 different people, and then all of a sudden, and all communications just stops for no apparent reason. The infamous Hollywood no is how I like to describe it. Can you talk about a little bit more how to keep the interest, or, again, we don't want to be fired by Tiffany. How do we keep this dialogue going if someone has stated that they are actually interested?
My mantra is bi-weekly follow-up. It's far enough away, but not too close.
Bi-weekly follow-ups. I would also add to that is, obviously when our writers get requests, we always follow up and we always do our due diligence. Sometimes an executive will suddenly be thrown on a movie in 3 months, they're in India and there's no way to get a hold of them. So I don't like to fly, I'm not flying to India to get an answer, so it's just about being patient. Just one quick story I'll add is that I had a writer pitch to an executive, and they actually had a really good relationship and they kept in touch, and the executive took time to read it, he went to Jerusalem, etc. One day the writer called him up and said, did you read it yet? And he said, my father just passed away, I can't do this right now, like in tears. The writer, out of the goodness of his heart, sent the producer flowers, apologizing, and made a vow that, okay, I'm just gonna let him, get to me when he can. A day after the flowers came, the producer said, I got the flowers, I appreciate it, I read your script, and now he's producing his project. It's a true story. So, but it wasn't done creepily because he didn't follow up after the flowers. Did you get them? Did you get them? Did you do that? I'm a good person though. So just taking them up to you.
I think it's also a matter of figuring out, like you were touching on earlier, is just what are the realistic next steps? If someone expresses interest, I think the next question then is, okay, so now what do you need to see? What do you need on my end? And then figuring out also what you need on their end. And I think coming up with even just a timeline the next couple of weeks and the kind of communication that you guys want to have and the next conversation that you want to have. It's really important once you have them on the hook and figure out that there is sort of mutual interest there in working together, just to figure out what's the next conversation will be and when are we going to have it, and kind of continue that.
I think the way that you phrase that is also very key. I think saying what can I do to help goes so much further than, hey, where are you, why haven't you read this, or what's going on with you, or, and I think that's something that I do as a producer too, and there are a lot of times where I'm trying to get in contact with someone that we're working with on a project, and the same thing happens to us all the time, so it's not like it's restricted to just people trying to get into the business. It's movie making and making TV shows and all these things. It's a very long process, and people are very busy, and we all get sucked into multiple projects. And I think saying, when you do your bi-weekly follow-up, saying, is there something that I can do? Is there something that you need from me? And trying to have it be sort of an offer of help as opposed to I'm pestering you and I'm getting impatient, that kind of thing.
On the series side, we read pilot scripts most of the time, and so for me, the next question is always, if I'm interested in a script, the most proactive thing that you can do is say, let me tell you about the series. So you have to think like an executive when you're selling your own script. Whereas at least in TV, longevity is key.
I would add one more thing also to your story of getting 7 people who are interested and then radio silence. I think that happens quite a lot where people might say, I really like the writing, there's a lot here, it's compelling, but it just doesn't get over that next hump, and it might take a little while for you to find that out, which I know is very frustrating. But there are a lot of things going around these days that tell writers or tell executives who the great writers are in the business, even if their scripts haven't sold. So we mentioned The Blacklist, which is an online platform now, but stems from a list of the best unproduced screenplays in the business. And there are a bunch more lists like that. There is a female-focused list, it's called the Bitch List. That's the same thing, didn't make that up. There's one called the Hit List, there's the Young and Hungry List. These are all things that are compiled annually of great scripts, most of which haven't actually been optioned or set up at a studio. Some of them have. But all of those writers are probably people who at one point had 7 people who were interested and said, I really like this, I really like it, but then it just didn't get over that next hump. And that doesn't mean that it's the end of the road, and executives and producers remember those scripts, and they talk about them. And when they talk with their friends and say, hey, have you read anything good lately? You might say, I passed on this, but I thought it was something special, and you might want to take a look. So it's going back to the idea that a no is not necessarily the end of the road. That can still mean something very positive for you, even if it does turn into silence and you don't get optioned or set up or whatever it is you're looking to do. It can still be a very positive thing, so don't get discouraged.